Before we start, can you give me an assist and subscribe if you haven't? I'm knocking on the door of 30K, so I'd appreciate the support, especially if you're new here. Remember that time Pokemon made a fighting game? Well, technically Bamco made it, with help from the Tekken devs, hence the name. Pokkén Tournament entered the scene in 2015, a hybrid of 3D and 2D combat featuring a cast of, mostly, iconic characters. Despite releasing in arcades and on a dying system before finally getting a Switch port, it sold pretty well for a debut fighting game. But wait, you might be thinking, if Pokkén is so good, why isn't there a Pokkén 2? Yeah, good question. The director is up for it, and the audience is definitely there. So what could a Pokkén sequel look like? Let's do some theory crafting for the game and a potential roster of 35 characters. Might be unrealistically big, but hey, aiming high makes for a more interesting video. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's get started. First things first, who's coming back? Pokkén 1 eventually wrapped up with a roster of 23. Pretty good lineup, even if it lacked a couple types and leaned hard on Gens 1 and 4. Some turnover in fighting games that aren't Smash Brothers is normal though, so I wouldn't expect everyone to return. Basically, these 8 are getting benched, leaving us with 15 veterans anchoring our sequel roster and space for 20 newcomers to headline it. Just like in the first game, all of these characters will have different base HP values and one of a few battle styles. Standard is for well-rounded characters who are easier to learn, technical fighters are more complex and often have an extra gimmick, speed for those who emphasize movement and evasion over raw strength, and power for the opposite, slower but stronger and often packing knockback resistance on a few moves. I've added a 5th style to the mix, Tricky, for characters who lean heavily on mind games and deception to win. Yeah, we're going full Mario Tennis with these now. Veteran fighter Gengar has been reclassed to this new style. All others have kept what they already had. Got all that? Now, let's look at our first few newcomers. Yeah, I guess this one was obvious. I don't want to rely on popular picks, but bringing in what may be the most popular Pokemon in the entire series just makes sense. Moveset-wise, Smash Bros. Is actually a good starting point for what Greninja can do. Forming ninja weaponry out of water, dipping into the shadows to evade and counterattack, utilizing high speed and very good jumps and air mobility, cause, you know, frog, would fit the character and help stand out next to the ninja-like fighter we already have. Greninja would lack Sceptile's trapping moves and have less consistent frame data, but better damage output, focusing on raw movement and mix-ups to ambush foes and claim victory. Here's another that felt like a glaring omission from Pokkén 1, and not just due to being outright planned at one point but dropped for unknown reasons. I envision Absol using powerful claw and blade attacks and supplementing them with something unique. A special where you foresee one of 4 natural disasters based on Pokemon's 4 weather types, that then happen a couple seconds later. Imagine a sudden deluge of rain that pins your foe down, or a spiraling cyclone of sand that grabs and flings them upward. Or a burst attack, the game's supers basically, that drags your foe into a vision of the sun going supernova eons from now, then strands them there. Might all be in their head, but their bodies won't know the difference. Here's a popular one who wasn't brought up much in Pokkén speculation. With Scizor bowing out, there's room for another Gen 2 bug. And this one's got interesting stuff to work with. And by that I mean we can make Heracross a grappler. Imagine a special where you charge forward horn first, and if your opponent gets caught, they're hooked on and flung away. Or a counter that tanks an enemy hit, scoops them up with the horn, and gives them the old heave-ho. Mix in a regular grab and enough other moves, and there you go. Actually, Kirby's Beetle ability shows off the moveset potential here. Could jab or bludgeon opponents with horn attacks, hover in mid-air as a mix-up, and more. Wait a second, a middle stager? Getting one in the first game opens the opportunity for another, and Duat is among the more popular ones. I imagine this character being a well-rounded jack-of-all-trades who uses a combination of ranged water-bending attacks and competent, partially disjointed footsies using those 2-bladed shells. No particular standout stats, but with steady, reliable tools, surprising range on certain moves, and a pinch of hard work and determination, we have a fighter who could punch well above their weight. Has a very Bandana D type of lovable underdog energy that make for a fan favorite, if designed right. Here's where we sit so far. Good foundation, but we have a lot more to fill in. We're just getting started. Time for a short topic shift. Helps keep things fresh. What could Pokkén 2 look like mechanics-wise? Some people take issue with the dual phases or how RPS-heavy the gameplay is, but honestly, I think those are a big part of the game's identity, especially when Pokemon's types are built on a giant web of RPS. Instead, I'd focus on quality of life improvements to patch up the rough spots, cleaner UI, smoother gameplay with a slightly faster pace, and more. One change I'd definitely make? More transparency for when a shift from dual phase to field is going to happen. In Pokkén 1, each move in dual phase has a certain number of phase shift points that apply on hit. Once enough points have built up on one of the fighters, a shift happens. What I would do is just add an on-screen meter that indicates these shift points and shows how close either side is to activating a shift. That's a lot of shifting. Additional visual aid that helps out players and spectators without shifting their attention away. Okay, I'm done. Alright, let's see more newcomers. Here's a standout who missed the boat for a different fighting game. Smash Ultimate might have skipped Gen 8, but Pokkén 2 wouldn't be limited to whichever generation is newest. Why does Cinderace have a technical style despite a Greninja-like stat line? Tapping into the footballer motif, Neutral Special Pyro Ball would generate a fireball you could move around with you and kick at different trajectories with different attacks. It'd add extra options for offense and defense, if you're skilled enough. And like several Gen 8 mons, this one has a built-in burst attack, projecting out a Gigantamax form, generating a colossal fireball, and kicking it square at the opponent for a fiery explosion. Why does going G-Max work here outside of Galar? Good question. Is anyone surprised by this one? No? Didn't think so. Just like Greninja, Meowscarada's in the camp of too popular and too much moveset potential not to include. Even compared to Pokkén's current grass types, the floral explosions and crafty illusions cover motifs they don't. This is our first tricky style newcomer, encouraging players to step into the role of a magician. Meowscarada's moveset, just like the Smash one I made last year, would be all about misdirecting opponents, leaving them wide open to your high-damaging traps and setups. Could even tap into Paldea's signature mechanic when in burst mode. Any Gen 9 newcomer could. Terastallizing would grant a damage boost and other enhancements to their grass-type moves, including a grand finale of a burst attack. If you're a regular here, you saw this coming. I've rallied around this character in the past, and while that didn't pan out for Ultimate, Pokkén has a wide open niche for what has become one of the most iconic rock types. While Garchomp taps into some earth-based stuff, there's a lot more we can dig up. Rock Throw is an unwieldy projectile, powerful stone-edged stalagmites, rocketing forward using Accelerock, even embedding stealth rocks into the stage that pop up when your opponent gets close. But I chose Dusk Lycanroc because of what the form could do in burst mode, a berserk state inspired by the anime that make your attacks faster and safer, shifting playstyles for a while from bait and punish to hard pressure rushdown. Add the signature Z move tailor-made for a burst attack and you have a standout fighter. Checking in again, and okay, those three were pretty safe picks, but we got them out of the way, so expect a few deeper cuts going forward. Another way Pokkén 2 could expand on the original? Gameplay modes. Of course the sequel would have more ways to play, especially when the first game kinda didn't have many. One that'd definitely be worth adding? A traditional arcade mode. Pick a character, face a sequence of fighters, conclude with a boss at the end. Kinda weird that the console versions didn't bring this over in hindsight. Would be faster paced compared to the main story mode, even if that was less grindy than the first games, and if players got scored on how well they did, it'd even have replay value. On the casual side, maybe a gimmicky alt mode where instead of summoning support Pokemon, various items from the mainline games spawn in during field phase and you can use them instead. It wouldn't fit into competitive play whatsoever, but it could be fun to mess around in as a change of pace. Now, let's get back on pace with more newcomers. Kicking off round 3 is another who felt weirdly absent from the first game. Pokkén still lacks an agile fighting type, and Min Xiao combines that with martial arts and, of all things, long sleeve-like fur extensions that can be swung like whips. Disjointed strikes using these sleeves help open foes up and force approaches, but the real threat is using them to create openings for direct attacks, leading to impressively lengthy combos. We could even use Min Xiao's regenerator ability to let you heal extra upon forcing a phase shift, even if you didn't have any regular recoverable health. Add in the powerful yet risky high jump kick that deals recoil damage if it whiffs, and you have an extra game of health management going on. Now for an unassuming fairy type who caught on with the fans, despite not being officially revealed until after Scarlet and Violet were out. Tinkaton packs a punch belying that short stature, even without any Corviknights to go all Monster Hunter on. The big hammer's as painful as it looks, and the gremlin wielding it would be annoyingly hard to hit, though the hammer being so unwieldy would make for some of the slowest frame data in the game. Using the hammer creatively would be key. Batting a rock into the air to strike down jumping opponents, using quick disruptive moves that deal little damage but stagger your foe, or a burst attack where Tinkaton quickly modifies the hammer to be even bigger and swings for the fences. There's a deep cut. This normal type is far from normal, with an underwhelming stat line but a moveset that's anything but. Pokemon's resident Blue Mage could attack using brush strokes that form into painted versions of other fighters' attacks. Combining the best parts of other movesets, even a few from cut characters, would let Smeargle pull off combos and setups that'd never be possible otherwise. Could even use the move that gives the species its near-infinite potential as a way to copy an opponent's special for the rest of the round. A Kirby-like gimmick that give an already deceptively flexible fighter the means to add one more, potentially OP, color to their palette. And now, an Ultra Beast enters the ring. Wanted to include one of Gen 7's weird interdimensional beings, and this one's the glassiest of glass cannons. Pheromosa relies on incredible speed, the fastest of anyone on the roster, to throw off opponents, misdirecting them enough to sneak in attacks and put those strong mixed defenses to work. With a variety of kicks and burst options, the move pool here gives me strong Bayonetta vibes. Maybe an afterburner kick counterpart could work here? But Pheromosa has to rely on mind-gaming opponents. With a tall hurtbox, mediocre range and frame data, and the lowest HP in the game, making even a small mistake could cost you the round right then and there. Roster's beginning to take shape now, including a couple weirder picks. Now, let's talk about something important. Pokkén 2 needs new stages to fight on. It'd help illustrate how much the Farum region has changed in however many years have passed in-universe. Tekken loves going all out with stages, and Pokkén can follow in its footsteps. There are 3 ways I'd go about it. Several stages from the first game low-key embody certain Pokemon types, so we could try and cover the missing ones, like a stage set in a deep forest shrouded in fog and mysterious lights, a home field for grass or fairy types. Some existing stages could gain extra phases, like recent Tekken games have leaned into. If a fighter impacts certain walls or floors hard enough, they'd break, transitioning the fight to a new section with new boundaries and new potential tactics. And we could do more of what the first game did and throw in a few stages directly inspired by Tekken. For example, how about a caged-in arena as part of an underground league the player infiltrates during the story mode? Or an homage to a Tekken 3 classic, a high-tech wrestling ring suspended high in the air, would even double as a flying type home stage. Hey, you know who'd be a perfect fit for that? What's a flying wrestling ring without a flying wrestler to roost there? With Arpika sitting out this time, there's room for another speedy wrestler type. Why not one a lot of fans wanted to see get in last time? A high-flying grappler with unique ways of doing that, while Lucha prioritizes speed over strength. The avian luchador swoops down at foes from different angles with attacks and command grabs, even mid-air grabs, that fling other fighters around despite being smaller than most of them. But with stubby range prone to getting outspaced, it'd take quick thinking to keep your momentum going. Makes sense that any wins would feel earned. This is a face wrestler. Galar's punk rock lizard salamander thing has the odd type combo of electric and poison. What can we do with that? How about a well-rounded fighter focused on debuffs? This amped form Toxtricity is a mixed attacker competent up close or at range. Wearing opponents down with each hit, certain moves would poison foes for extra damage over time, while others would inflict paralysis that adds a few frames of delay to the start of enemy movement. But the star of the show is this fighter's sound-based attacks, with a bevy of disjointed guitar-like riffs enhanceable through charge to become bigger and electrical. And of course, the line's G-Max form and signature Max move to really bring the house down. Painting, music, and now dance? This is an eclectic bunch. The roster's second Paldea starter puts on a dazzling performance as part of a long line of fighting game dancers. With flowing dance moves, powerful kicks, and detachable feather-shaped water formations, Quaquaval sports a mix-up heavy fighting style constantly on the move. While mainly a physical attacker, mastery over their element would allow for things like creating echoing rings with water pulse or using a modified water pledge to spawn fountains on the spot. And what self-respecting dancer doesn't have extra flashy optional moves? Certain attacks could be extendable with perfectly timed button presses. These just frame inputs adding extra depth and precision to this fighter's stylishness. Hey, a new pseudo-legendary, and probably not who you expected. But this one has a really cool angle to build off of. Sporting a mainline move pool featuring an unusually high number of moves that raise the user's stats, Como-O would constantly be applying buffs, like Dragon Dance for a temporary speed boost, Power Up Punch as a special that gets stronger every time it connects, and their signature Z move as a burst attack that deals damage and buffs all of their stats at once. Then add the ability Bulletproof to provide innate super armor against weaker projectiles to make Como-O a big body zone breaker, and the move Clanging Scales to work as a fast defensive pressure breaker that makes you lose Bulletproof for the rest of the round. A very unusual heavy whose strengths are constantly changing. How about that round of newcomers? Yet there's still more left to reveal. But first, some other mons playing a backup role. Support Pokemon were a major mechanic in the first game. Pairs of non-playable characters you could call in to assist once their meter was filled. Not only would Pokkén 2 keep them, there'd definitely be some new pairs. Here are just a few examples of what combinations we could see. Grookey would advance forward while using Branch Poke to attack in rhythm, paired with Croconaw, who leaps forward and attempts to bite your opponent, stunning them for a moment. Sableye uses Shadow Sneak to ambush your foe from behind, paired with Golisopod, who strikes quickly with First Impression and buffs specifically your backward movement. Ninetales gets a new partner in Alolan Ninetales, who casts an Aurora Veil that provides you with armor against all weaker attacks for only a few seconds, because the veil falls apart quickly when it isn't actively snowing. And for a legendary pair, Tapu Lele creates a shockwave of nature's madness that damages grounded foes proportional to their current HP, paired with Zamazenta, who uses Metal Burst to tank an enemy hit and retaliate. The stronger the attack blocked, the bigger and harder hitting the counter. Like in Pokkén DX, this pair could only be summoned once per round. But if Zamazenta's here, then where is... Oh... A new legendary has graced the battlefield. While slightly redundant species-wise, this ancient hero reawakened is a natural fit that doubles as our most unique heavy yet. And that's saying something. Despite having the highest possible base HP, Zacian's incredible offensive stats lend to a fast, combo-centric style with finely honed, disjointed strikes that shouldn't be possible by what amounts to a direwolf wielding a sword, boasting some of the best mobility and damage output in the game. But to keep her from breaking yet another metagame, this fighter has unexpected drawbacks. Too honorable to rely on cheesy comebacks, not only would Zacian's burst attack be among the weakest, she'd completely lack the rage damage boost other fighters get at low health. To win with this one, you can't rely on a last-second clutch finish. We're a bit short on power style newcomers, so time to fix that. While Scizor is riding the bench, a counterpart from Old Sinnoh can carry the torch, while fitting a regional variant onto the roster. An antiquated evolution with rock-splitting strength, Kleavor's twin axes aren't just for show. With powerful attacks covering wide arcs, this fighter can lay on the pressure, can even use that part rock typing in unique ways, like pulling a stone pillar out of the ground and slicing it apart to create wide-reaching splinters, or raising a pillar behind your opponent, cutting off their ability to retreat. Add in a few variants of Scizor's moves, like the stackable swords dance, and we have a primal counterpart with the might of an ancient warrior. What's this one doing here? Might come off weird, but there's an angle here with how out of place this neat freak chinchilla truly is. Meet our joke character but not really, who gets dragged into the plot with their trainer against their wishes. And the moveset fits someone unaccustomed to battling. Frantic movement, attacks that desperately flail at opponents, and projectiles like seeds, pebbles, and swift stars thrown recklessly. A lot of multi-hit moves basically. But this Chinchino has some under-the-radar strengths. The line's Technician and Skill Link abilities mean those multi-hits are surprisingly effective. And with Tidy Up to quickly remove debuffs and status ailments at will, and a move that plucks traps and hazards out of the ground and throws them away, this fighter forces opponents to play a clean game too. That's almost everyone accounted for. Who goes in those last 2 slots sitting there ominously? Well, to explain that... So, the first Pokken's story mode was bare bones, mostly just grinding through tournaments with occasional dialogue. There was something there, but it wasn't utilized well. How could a sequel do better? How about a plot centered around a new form of energy infecting the Farum region? Appearing as strange orange or purple auras, this energy drives affected Pokemon insane and turns them violent, even altering their coloration to highlight their state of corruption. The player character, given a full customizable 3D trainer model and a selection of voice actors to pick from this time, is pulled into the conflict after their partnermon barely survives a fight with a corrupted one. This leads to them working alongside returning characters Nia and Anne to uncover where this new threat is coming from. Eventually, you discover the source: disruptions in space-time causing the energy to leak in from alternate timelines, spurred on by a new character from one of those timelines who fell into this one. They want to get back home through any means necessary, and they don't care if this timeline is destroyed in the process, leading to a final confrontation where they sick 2 more unlockable fighters on you. Hailing from an alternate past, or something like that, it's complicated, the beast known only as Roaring Moon might look like a mashup of Mega Salamence, Bird, and Supervillain, but do not take it lightly. Hovering ominously in midair, the Living Paradox is a deadly force in battle. This primordial, savage creature bears down on foes relentlessly with hard-hitting attacks, gap closers, and burst options for days. What few utility moves there are, Roost to temporarily land, Feather Dance to scatter projectiles, are a means to an end of getting up close and eviscerating all opposition. But that primal Unga Bunga mindset is also a weakness. This moveset is lacking in mix-ups. Even a skilled Roaring Moon would have a linear neutral and a very obvious game plan, making them predictable to a fault if not played expertly. Roaring Moon's counterpart is a Living Paradox from one potential future instead, and this robotic replica of Gardevoir and Gallade couldn't be more opposite. A cold, unfeeling killing machine, Iron Valiant may be powerful, but its greatest strength is its versatility. With an impressive array of techniques and projectiles, along with twin arm blades that can detach and fuse into a 2-sided sword, this entity is a technological force of destruction with answers for nearly everything. But all of that firepower covers up a glaring design flaw. Unable to truly improvise or create its own ideas, Iron Valiant's advantage state is unexpectedly limited, and its combos are shockingly short. Winning with this fighter requires winning neutral more times than anyone else. Hopefully the arsenal at your mechanical fingertips is enough to do so. There we are, a roster for a Pokkén Tournament sequel, comprised of 35 characters from all across Pokemon's history, covering a huge variety of fighting styles along with reps for every generation and type. There's something here for everyone, hopefully. Still, I'm aware this roster isn't perfect. A few types are still short on fighters while others got extra TLC, like the 5 dark types here, and the 10 fighting types, but that makes sense. And the newcomers here admittedly lean harder on later generations, a combination of the first game's focus on earlier gens and there being so many interesting newer mons available. There's a long list of honorable mentions though, great to pull from if this theoretical game got theoretical DLC. I could see Zoroark, Venusaur, and Tapu Koko in particular being good Season 1 picks. But what do you think? Would you handle the roster differently? Am I a visionary with a brilliant plan, or an idiot who needs to stop talking? Or somewhere in between, probably. Any other game ideas you'd want to see me make a roster for? I think I got a few more of these in me. And if you want to hear me talk more, give my other content a look. It's big on theory crafting, especially around Smash Brothers. For now, special thanks to these people here for contributing to this video, and a shout out to my patrons for continuing to support me after all this time. The cheers are appreciated. So, until next time, fingers crossed we get Pokkén 2 for real soon.